You wonder who this guy was? His name is Gins Smokeyes, and I just wonder if I could play guitar as good as he does. Let's give him a warm heart once again. My name is Ieva Morica, and I would like to say a warm and wholehearted welcome to all of you at the 6th Social Entrepreneurship Forum in Riga at the Latvian National Library. In Latvian, this building also has another name, a Palace of Light. This name is based on the symbolic meaning of the wisdom, inspiration, and striving for a higher purpose that our cultural heritage holds. Wisdom, inspiration, and striving for a higher purpose are also things that social entrepreneurs need. As we convene here for 2 days to network, learn, discuss, debate, and get inspired, some of you may be wondering, why did we choose social impact as this year's theme? There are several reasons. Honestly, we got a bit fed up with the seemingly endless debate here in the Baltic states of trying to understand the nature of social entrepreneurship and coming up with the right set of criteria to define it. You need those things in place, but their debates are not very fun. Thus, we thought a better way to explain the nature of social enterprise is the angle of impact that a social enterprise is trying to achieve. And achieving an impact should be at the heart of every social enterprise. The other reason we chose social impact as this year's theme is that we saw a growing interest in this concept among social enterprises, but also among policymakers. Indeed, being able to account for and measure impact is something that can help to convince the skeptics of social entrepreneurship's potential. The third reason social impact is this year's theme is because the European Union is starting to take impact measurement seriously. The potential flow of funding for social enterprises, both from the EU and hopefully from our governments, will be linked to impact measurement. We are anxious that the measurement approaches that will come out from the bureaucratic system perhaps may be too heavy and burdensome for the comparatively young social enterprise sector in the Baltic states and the small startups. And therefore, we wanted to identify tools and methods how impact can be achieved, measured, and communicated in a meaningful way that would not overburden social enterprises. And finally, at the closing panel of last year's forum, our Estonian friend Jaan Aaps mentioned his work with social impact reports in Estonia. The participants in the audience responded that they wanted to learn more about it. So, this ended up having an impact on our choice of the topic as well. When I think about social enterprises, for me, 3 words stand out, and those are trust, motivation, and joy. I will start with trust. I often think about the wonderful novel written by Victor Hugo, Les Miserables. Perhaps you remember the character of Jean Valjean. He was an ex-convict who was imprisoned for 19 years for stealing a loaf of bread. Upon his release, no innkeeper gives him a shelter. Finally, he finds some at the bishop's place. The bishop takes care of him, but at night, Jean Valjean steals some silverware and flees the bishop's home. Eventually, he is caught by a police, and he is brought back to the bishop. The bishop surprises Valjean by telling the police that Valjean forgot to take silver candlesticks and admonishing him to remember his promise to use the silver to become an honest man. Inspired by Bishop's trust, Valjean decides to live his future life as an honest man. The simple act of trust has had a profound impact on the life of Valjean and many people around him. Thus, whether or not we trust others determines to a great extent the outcome of our relationship. If we enter a relationship with suspicion, we will always try to protect our self-interest. If we enter a relationship with trust, we will seek a joint solution. Why am I telling you all of this in relation to social enterprises? Because for me, this is about building relationships of trust. Trust among all stakeholders, social enterprises, their clients, beneficiaries, partners. And trust among social enterprises and decision makers that the resources invested will be put to work for the betterment of society. The other word that comes to my mind when I think about social enterprise is motivation. When speaking to committed social entrepreneurs, I often end up asking, why do you do what you do? Why did you choose this challenging path of all the hard work without making a lot of money? The response that comes up is very simple. They say, I want to make the world a better place. And I find it quite striking how difficult it is for many people to believe that someone can act based on pure and sincere love of humankind. And here trust interweaves with motivation. We have to trust that people have a good motivation to do good things. And finally, the third term that comes to my mind when I think about social enterprise is joy. Have you ever seen a gloomy and pessimistic social entrepreneur? No, me neither. They usually are people who see the glass half full, who don't see problems, but opportunities. And even if they fail, they will get up quickly and move on. And it is always fun and a pleasure to be among them, isn't it? So, trust, motivation, and joy. Finally, I would like to say sincere thanks to all of you who have joined us at the forum as speakers, contributors, and active participants. Thank you also to the people with whom we have worked together in building a rich program for this forum. The Estonian Social Enterprise Association, the Reach for Change from Sweden, the British Council in Latvia, and Renate Lukjanska, who with her energy managed to get an Erasmus-funded project that will support tomorrow's panel. We also greatly appreciate the contribution of the BA School of Business and Finance, Banku Augstskola, which for the second year in a row has provided a team of committed students to volunteer at the forum. And the final thanks goes to a very special person, Tatiana Tvetkova, who initiated the first forum 6 years ago. Thank you so much. Enjoy the forum. And now I'm giving it over to Michael Pyner. He is a dear friend of the forum. And as someone said, if you come to the forum once, you will never be able to leave it. So you will have to come back and back again and again. And Michael is a great example. And thank you so much, Michael, for having your trust in us for such a long time. Over to you now.
Good morning. I am your gloomy social enterprise host for the next 2 days. I have said I have some official things to say, like the Twitter hashtag is hashtag #SEFRiga, S-E-F Riga, all one word. The bathrooms are out where the coffee was, in case. And I have to tell you that Latvian health and safety means that we are not sitting on round tables. We wanted you to be more informal. But apparently you have to sit like this, because if you sit on a round table, you are a fire risk. I don't know how, but maybe you will spontaneously combust if we sit you in circles. So, that we begin with that. It gets better now. You realize you're old when you need this, and the writing is too small. So, I've said to the interpreters that if I get really excited, because I'm Irish, I start to talk too fast, and then if I get really super excited, I start to speak in Irish. So, if the interpreters do this, I'll know that, I have to come back and speak in English. Let's just make sure I've said everything that I needed to say. I have. When you go out of this room, just before you get to coffee, you will see a wall that has written on it, expectations wall. And these were not for VIPs, although you are VIPs, but what we would like you to do, because this conference learned from last year when people said, less talking at us, more questions, more time to network, that kind of stuff. Don't just have lots of speeches. What we'd like to make sure is that we find your expectations for this year so that we can factor them into the conference, the forum for next year. So if you write 1 or 2 words, please do not write 8 of these and leave them in an essay on the wall. It's lovely, but it means we won't read it. So, if you give these when you have written your expectation to Egitha or me or Ieva or Irina, we will put them on the wall outside. And I'll come back to this at the end because we'd like to just talk to 1 or 2 of you about your expectations. And the expectations should be realistic. I've just done this in Tunisia, and one guy wrote, I want to leave here in 3 days as a very successful social entrepreneur. So, we can't do that. I'm sorry. So, why are we here? The formal goal of this is to network, to bring you together, empower and inspire you, bringing together social entrepreneurs, their friends and supporters from the Baltic and beyond, like Star Trek. So, we want you to leave here feeling like this was useful. We don't want you to leave here thinking, oh, it's just another one of those things that I went to and it was fantastic because it was in the wonderful new National Library and I hadn't been in before, so I got an excuse to go. And, we want you to leave thinking, that was really useful. I can take this away and I can actually use what's being said at the conference. This is fantastic. So it needs to be useful. If it isn't useful, speak to us and say, I don't understand what that was for. Because we need to know. Social impact is talked about all the time. Everywhere you go, people say, oh, we really need to make an impact here. We have to make an impact here. Oh yes, the most important thing to us is impact. And then you say to them, not because you're being cruel, but you say, what is impact? And they go, oh, it's what we do. Okay, but what is it? You have to measure things. And so, hopefully, one of the things that we'll get at the end of this 2 days is an opportunity for you to think, okay, now I have a broader understanding of what this concept is and how I can apply it in my work or how I can talk to people about this. The last thing I want to talk about is the context for this conference. We don't live in isolation. We live in a globalized world. And the context for this is what is called a global financial crisis, which I don't believe happened. I think it is a myth, and I will explain why. Social entrepreneurs have been told over the last probably 3 or 4 years that in some ways we are the solution to the global financial crisis. Nonsense. We're part of that solution, we're part of that approach, but we're not the answer. Nobody is the answer. So when we think about it and we want to measure impact, consider this. And I'm going to read some of this because it's detailed. We have seen inequality rates among rich and poor grow at a speed unseen since the 19th century across Europe and in other parts of the world. The world's richest people have been left untouched by austerity. Untouched. They are seeing their wealth increase by $500,000 every single minute. And this is not some weird left-leaning think tank, just in case you're worried. This is Credit Suisse Global Wealth Report, so that well-known left-leaning think tank in Zurich. So, in a recent report in Davos, you may have seen, the charity Oxfam presented a report entitled The Cost of Inequality. In this report, it said the world's 100 richest people have earned a stunning total of $240 billion in 2012. Enough money to end extreme poverty in the world 4 times over. The richest 1% has increased its income by 60% in the last 20 years. The financial crisis accelerating their wealth rather than slowing it down. And while the income of the top 0.01% is even greater than that. Oxfam's report argues extreme wealth is unethical, economically inefficient, politically corrosive, socially divisive, and environmentally destructive. The UK is seeing equality returning to levels not seen since the time of Charles Dickens. In China, the top 10% of people take home 60% of the wealth. Chinese inequality levels are now the same as South Africa, which is the most unequal country in the world, and sadly, even more unequal than the end of apartheid. In the US, the richest 1% share income has doubled since 1980, from 10 to 20%. And according to the report, the top 0.01% have quadrupled their income. The number of billionaires has doubled between 2009 and 2014, and this elite group has seen their wealth increase by $668 million per day in the 12 months to March 2014. And yet there's no money. We live in a time of austerity, terrible poverty. 84 people have the same net worth, 84, as the bottom 4 billion people on the planet. It's a staggering statistic. And then there's us, saving the world joyfully. I'm going to come to that. There's a reason for everything I do. You should know that by now. This, in case you're wondering, this is Irish, not Klingon. It's just with my Star Trek. We want to operate in an ethical world as social entrepreneurs. We want to develop and run successful businesses. Profit is a fantastic thing because it means we can do what we want to do in terms of the people that we work with and have that profit used in different ways. So that's not a bad thing. But what do we mean by impact? How do we capture it? How do we make it meaningful? Because that's why we're here. I can show you this. Which is the first line of Irish. It has no impact for you at all, because everyone's going, okay, it's gone crazy now. But it has no impact. It has impact for me because I understand it. Oh. That has no impact for you. But that does. So all that says is Ireland is a beautiful country, but it has no impact. I show you that, and immediately there's impact. So part of the deal around social impact, part of the deal around how we explain impact is to have a shared language, is to have something we understand that shows us impact. This is impactful because it's a visual experience that all of us will have. This is Benbulben in County Sligo in the northwest of Ireland. It's a beautiful place. You don't need me to have words. So there is something about this shared language of impact that we have to have. Moving the debate about social enterprise away from the legal definition to creating, measuring, telling stories is part of social impact. A growing number of investors are becoming mindful. Rod Schwartz will talk about some of this tomorrow. Becoming mindful of the impact of social enterprise, not only for their financial return, but also the social environmental impact of what they invest in. So there's a real interest in this. Understanding, measuring, and applying the concept of impact becomes an essential part of every organization that strives for sustainable solutions, for entrenched societal problems, and to build a different type of world that looks at business differently and ethically. But doing that well and meaningful is the key. The tradition of gathering for 2 inspirational days in a forum in Riga began in 2009 through the Soros Foundation and its partners in the Stockholm School of Economics on the other side of the river. I think it is from here. And it's been my privilege to speak at 4 of those. It's fantastic. The theme of the forum changes every year to reflect topical issues in the Baltic or to reflect irritations with... Why are we always talking about this? And the forum, as Ieva has talked, is a co-effort of a group committed enthusiasts coming from various institutions in Latvia and the Baltics. The program for this forum has 3 big themes: impact, achieving impact, measuring and communicating impact. And this person sitting here, who's going to be our first speaker, has to leave today because he has another commitment, but you must speak to this man. Well, he's here for lunch. He won't get much lunch, but he's here. And the reason I'm saying that is, and I'll introduce Jim formally in a moment, but Jim he really is a huge resource for you. And part of what I kind of will end with is to help us. Ieva and her team and colleagues have assembled speakers, contributors, and facilitators of workshops of real quality and experience. They really do know what they're talking about. So don't just listen. Use them. They are a resource. Question, debate, disagree, but don't be silent. Don't go home thinking, oh, I wish I'd asked that question of that person. Use them as a resource. You have 2 days to do that. There's no test at the end to ask if you did it. But we will come back to the expectations wall. But what I would like to ask is just for 2 or 3 people to share with us your expectations. And I'm not going to, at this point, if you look, somebody goes, oh no, don't look at me. So I'm going to look up here. As soon as you look around, people start to panic. So if there are 2 or 3 people, I'm looking, who want to say, this is my expectation for the next 2 days, that would be great, because then I don't look stupid standing here thinking nobody's raising their hand. Oh, I like you very much. I forced him, she said.
Well, hello everyone, my name is Alex, and my expectation for this forum is I want to have some great divine inspiration for my future deeds. I look for new ideas, and I'm critic by myself, so wait for hard questions from me.
Oh, perfect. Now he's scared. One more. Oh, come on, don't be so Latvian. Put a hand up. Will you raise it? Jim's going to talk about his own expectations.
One of my expectations is that you take what is heard over the next couple of days and make it Latvian, make it relevant to your social needs. We can talk about global needs and what's happening in even as close as Sweden and Finland, but what's actually relevant is the people in Latvia. So that's my ambition.
Thank you very much. And we have one more. Perfect. Brigitte, thank you very much. Don't look surprised, I just read your name. We haven't met.
I really hoped you remembered me from last time. My expectation is to really see that young people and experienced people share the same language, and they really, with joint effort, can make this positive difference.
And I love the fact that we're talking about young people and experienced, not old people. That's perfect.